What's up everyone, it's Davey and we're back in Roblox BedWars. In this video, I'm going to be going through each of the current kits available in the game, and I'm going to be ranking them from the worst to the best kits. You know, it's going to be based on my own personal preference as a player. It'll of course depend on your play styles. So if you're less into attacking and being aggressive, and maybe you prefer defending or gathering resources, then your own rankings are going to differ than mine. You know, mine's going to be based on a little bit more of an aggressive play style. Before I begin, if you can hit that like button, and what that's going to do is it's going to tell YouTube you want to see more videos like this one, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. We're approaching 300,000 subs so fast, so thank you all for your support. If you're new to BedWars, kits have unique abilities or tools that can help you and your team in a number of ways. So some kits can actually be more considered support roles, or like, you know, healers and resource farmers, and some can be considered defensive like the builder, and others are really more, you know, designed for combat, so like an archer or barbarian, for example. Choosing a kit that works for your playstyle is incredibly important because it gives you, you know, basically added benefit or advantage. So if you're really into defending, of course you're going to want something that's going to help you with defending. If you're more into supporting other players, you don't really want to be like, you don't want it all on your shoulders for the win, then, you know, having a more like a support role makes sense for you. Unfortunately, not all of the kits are free, but they do have weekly free rotations. So if you're bummed out that you can't currently try a particular kit that's listed in here, you know, that does require Game Pass, you're going to obviously get your chance. I mean, they rotate out the kits every week, so you are going to get a chance to be able to play that kit for free. You just got to wait for that. You just got to be a little patient. So let's jump straight into this, and we're going to start with the less appealing kits, like I said earlier, and then we're going to be moving down the list to the best. And of course, this is my, you know, this is my preference only. So if you don't agree with this order, you know, you can make your own order, you know, and let me know in the comments below what your order would be. So starting with number 9 is the Shielder. The Shielder was intended, you know, to combat those pesky bow spammers, aka me, DV, who enjoy knocking players off of bridges or high areas, which can often result in a big win, right? So maybe you're a player that's last and you're kind of trying to bridge to something and you get knocked by an arrow, and that, you know, archer gets the win. That's because of that knockback, right? You got knocked by an arrow. So, you know, the idea behind this was that shielders would be able to combat that, right? So you'd be able to go straight up, you know, in a sky bridge, or maybe go to the sky to make a sky base, and you can shield and move around without getting knocked. The problem is you're actually an easy target. You know, you wonder why? Well, it's because you're, you know, when you're shielded up as a shielder, because you do spawn with these, right? The shielder actually spawns with these shields. As you shield up, you're going to be moving very slowly, if at all. You know, if you're at the very, very top because you built straight up to the sky and you're stuck up there, it's just an easy target. All I got to do is keep hitting you with arrows, and eventually you're going to die. Same goes for bridging. You know, I've killed, in fact, just this morning when I was playing, I killed someone just, you know, who was really bridging around with their shield up, and I killed them because they were too slow. So they just can't get across, because as soon as they release that shield, I'm going to get, you know, they're going to get knocked. Now, despite this, I have seen some skilled players use this kit during duos and solos very effectively, especially given armor. So if they have some armor on them, it's a lot harder to kill them, right? Because when they're shielded up, not only do I not, you know, have the chance to be able to knock them very easily, you know, they're taking a lot less damage from my arrows. So it's not like I could just hit them, you know, with 3 or 4 or 5 arrows. Even with a crossbow, it still takes a lot more hits because they're shielded up. But here's the thing. Here's how I feel about this. If you really need a kit to avoid getting knocked off of a bridge, you're doing things wrong. I don't think, you know, using this kit is the right way to combat that. If you're super annoyed by, you know, archers always knocking you, there's a couple things you should be doing. One is check to see if anyone's around who's shooting arrows. If they're shooting arrows, don't cross the bridge. Pretty easy, right? There's also better ways to build bridges. So, you know, if you're trying to bridge to maybe diamonds or emeralds, or get out of your base period, there are ways to make better bridges that are make it really hard for archers to knock you off. And then there's also obviously the counter archery. If they start getting hit back by an arrow, they're going to start changing their position. They're going to do something else. So, you know, hitting them back with arrows, it's basically what I do, to be honest. It's not a hard thing to do. And after a while, they're not going to want to die. So of course they're going to retreat. So unless they have way better aim than you and you have terrible aim, you should be able to get out of there. Now, if shielders actually blocked knockback by swords and absorbed more damage, they'd definitely be in my top 3 or 4 kits. But until then, this one is going to be collecting dust in my game passes. I'm just not going to use it. Next up with number 8 is Davey the Pirate. So I know you might be thinking, how could you put Davey solo on this list? How could he be number 8? And, you know, because we do love our favorite pirates, but let's face it and talk about this for a moment. Davey launches TNT from a cannon, and that's about it. So you buy this cannon for 20 iron, and then you need to buy a bunch of TNT for it, right? So TNT is not cheap. I mean, it's cheaper than it used to be, but it's still not cheap. You're going to need a lot of, like, you're going to probably need at least about 350 iron to make it even worthwhile to go out and launch TNT because it launches so fast. By the time you launch it, you're pretty much out of ammo again. By the time you bring a cannon anywhere useful, you're already getting, you know, bowed to death, or you're going to be rushed or targeted by an enemy before you can really set anything up interesting. So if you're going to set up in front of, you know, an enemy base, they're already going to take you out. They're just going to, you know, rush you. And unless you have like the ability to knock them so you can protect your cannon, you're going to be so busy protecting your cannon, you're not going to have time to aim it. You got to load the TNT into it, and then you're going to launch the TNT unless you have more than 10. It's not very effective. So I'm not a fan of this this particular kit because there's not many practical uses for it. You can more easily drop a TNT and bow it to wherever you want than having to, you know, aim into a cannon and then hold F to launch it and such. The other issue is if you require, you know, if you want to actually use this thing, you do need a ton of TNT, like I said. So that means a ton of iron. So there's high cost for this, you know, kit. And, you know, knowing this, unless they're turtling, you're kind of gambling by using this kit to assume that you're going to ever have a chance to really use the cannon effectively anywhere. And of all of the games I've been in with Davies, no one's really set up true cannon launchers. No one's really been able to use it. It's just a fun kit. It's purely for having fun or to troll, you know, launching TNT. So it's not a bad kit. It's just in this list, it's not one of the best or most useful. You know what I mean? It's really just a fun kit to be able to use, but it's not useful. You know, if they had made this more of like a hand cannon, like if he had like a, you know, giant hand cannon attached to his arm or something like that, I think this kit would have been a lot more useful. But the fact that you got to kind of tote this thing around, it's just not very good. And in fact, he's kind of collecting dust in my game passes as well. So next up is number 7, which is the builder. And the builder is actually super useful for players who like to craft the perfectly layered bed defense. You know, those players that just like, they'll take something away and then they'll add something and they'll take something away and they'll add something. You've seen them. Everyone's seen these types of players, and they just sit there at the iron and they, you know, they're pretty much the entire game. They're, you know, maybe they might be defending the bed a little bit here and there and maybe yelling at other players for doing anything to their bed. You know, they're very meticulous. They like to pretty much decorate and dress their bed up. And so that's where the builder comes in. The builder is actually really cool because you can, you know, buy this little construction hammer. It's a special hammer for the builder, and you can reinforce blocks, and it just gives them a lot more HP. So it takes a little bit more strikes to be able to, you know, to damage them. I've personally gone through reinforced blocks without really noticing much of the time difference, you know, with getting enemy beds. So if I come over at you with maybe a slightly upgraded, you know, pickaxe or maybe a slightly upgraded axe, chances are I'm not really going to care about the fact that it's reinforced. I'm just going to take it out. So I don't really find this as a useful kit to be sitting around with personally, because I'm more of you know, on the offense, I'm more of an attacker than I am a defender. Again, this is a number 7 specifically because that it might be, you know, this might be higher up on the list for some other players. Get some ceramic blocks in there, get a couple other things to block the TNT, and you should be in good shape. Next up is number 6 with Melody, and Melody is actually a really cool kit and a concept, right? And somewhat useful if you don't care about getting kills. So I still like this kit. It's just not really, you know, this is why it's number 6 instead of, you know, number 3 or 2 or 1, is that I don't really care about healing other players because typically I'm the player that's in combat. I don't want to be just sitting back and not doing anything. And, you know, if you're quick on your toes, you can actually kite enemy players and heal your team. It's really effective because a proper healer can actually help your team rush enemy bases or even control middle, you know, resources to an advantage. So you could actually 2v1 someone if, you know, with proper heals. Now, the problem with this is most players are not used to having a healer nearby. And so they're going to play as if they're playing solo without thinking about you. So they could end up bailing on you and leaving you alone with, you know, 2-3 other players just to, you know, destroy you. So again, while it's a very useful class, it requires a great deal of sacrifice of not trying to go for kills and simply, you know, simply following players around to heal them, which is why it's number 6 on my list. Like I said, it's not something I like to do. I like to go for the kill myself. Next is number 5 with the Baker, and the Baker can be considered a bit of a combat medic and is much more useful than Melody in my opinion, since you can buy apples with iron and drop them to teammates. You don't have to have a Melody around, so you can be in combat and heal yourself. Melody can only heal nearby teammates, so that's kind of a downside, whereas I can drop, you know, apples to my teammates and they can heal themselves whenever they feel like they need it. So it does take a little bit of time, of course, to eat, so that is a downside of eating to heal, is that, you know, you kind of have to be running away and then you can heal on the go. but it does take a moment compared to, Melody's just a strum. And you can also buy pies with emeralds, which is really cool. So eating a pie will actually give you a speed boost, which I really dig. This is a really, really great kit. Or even be able to, rush into someone's base. So like maybe you see them on Diamond Island and you can speed run, you can actually beat them to their bed because you're faster. There's a lot of benefits of the Baker, especially with the speed boost ability and the healing ability. So, if you're getting picked at a lot by, bows, you can pretty much be invincible. Especially if you feed like imagine feeding the elder tree with apples, so elder tree can actually heal themselves. That's actually killer. So again, super, super useful, but the only reason why I don't like this one is I like to go for damage modifiers whenever I can. But it's still a really, really good one. It's definitely a top 5 for me. Next up is number 4 with Cletus. And Cletus is an interesting kit since you'll typically find defenders using it. So, with Cletus, you actually never need to leave your base, believe it or not. With a full team, you can actually turtle and reach emerald armor pretty quickly with Cletus, given decent defending and bow skills to prevent like TNT airstrikes or pesky, rushers. With Cletus, you can actually buy carrots, and using the carrot crops, you can actually gather diamonds. And as you use those diamonds to upgrade to tier 3, you're going to start getting emeralds from the, tier 3 generator. And then from the tier 3 generator, you just need some emeralds to be able to make your first watermelon seed, which will also create an emerald, basically an emerald crop. Given enough watermelon seeds, you're going to start making a ton of emeralds. So, again, super easy to get to emerald armor that way. I made a video specifically on making one of the largest watermelon farms in BedWars until some other YouTubers decided to try to break it, which they did, which is fine by me. I'm not going to be making another watermelon video. While I don't play a lot with Cletus, he's definitely in my rotation as a top 4. If I'm feeling like I want to be lazy and just want to defend or something, I might go in as Cletus every now and then, but super rare. Next up is number 3, which is the Barbarian. So many of you remember the Barbarian was kind of a joke for a while because, he was the most useless kit in the game because it took forever to get a decent sword, and it was easier to just buy the sword. Like I would be stuck on like an iron sword while everyone else had diamond swords already, because anytime you die, you would lose your upgrade. And so how the Barbarian works is you actually have a rage meter, right? So you essentially, as you damage other players and your rage goes up, you can actually get auto upgrades for your sword. So you're not allowed to buy swords because you already get auto upgraded swords. So in order for me to be able to get a stone sword, I got to go and damage a player a little bit. It takes a while, right? So it's not immediate. So you're going to end up combining a little bit of bowing and just straight up combat to be able to get these better swords. And for a long time, it was easier to even just get your own emerald sword before you could ever get a diamond sword with the Barbarian. So this was the case until they made a change and buffed the Barbarian with the Rage Blade. And the Rage Blade is an absolutely insane sword, which can slice through enemies like it's like no other weapon in the game. It's not only super fast, but it's super high damage. So if you can damage enough players and get that thing, you are pretty much, it's game. So you just need to, try to stay alive so you don't die very often, because as you die, you lose a lot of rage. So it's going to take a lot more damage to be able to make up what you lost. But again, the more you play and the more you kill in the game, the more powerful you get, which is really cool because you never have to spend that iron on swords. So Barbarian is definitely my top 3. I find myself playing with this a lot and then forgetting to even change kits because I'm fine with the Barbarian. Next up is the Archer, which used to be my number 1 kit until the next one. But if you've ever watched me for some time, I've always been a fan of the bow. It gives you the ability to knock players easily, so it's super helpful, especially with the knockback ability, not only for close combat, but also knocking people off bridges. But with close combat, I like that knockback because I can knock you back and take you down a notch on your health and then switch over to sword and take you out, which gives me a huge advantage because I'm fully fresh, right? So this kit is an absolute beast though. The Archer kit is crazy because not only does the Archer have bonus damage, right, for its bows, but we also have this tactical crossbow, which is so much more damage, so much more accurate, and it does cost a lot, right? It does cost a lot of emeralds, but it's worth every bit of it, and you can kill players so much faster than a normal crossbow. So it's certainly a favorite of mine, but since it's so powerful, I get a lot of complaints. A lot of people get mad at me. They get so mad. You wouldn't believe the things I get told. So I tend to not use this kit as much as I used to. As much as I love the kit, they get salty, so I tend not to use it as much. I tend to use more Barbarian than the Archer these days, but sometimes I just jump in with the Archer and just ignore the crying. Next up with number 1 is the newest BedWars kit, which is the Elder Tree. And I didn't think this kit would actually be a favorite of mine, but it certainly is powerful. Not only to, go up against as a player, it's really intimidating when you see a giant one of these things coming at you and it's going to take you so much longer to kill, but it is also insanely fun and powerful to play with. So, as you gather more orbs around the map, of course, you're going to get bigger, bigger and you're going to get tankier because you're getting more health. It makes it so much harder for players to kill you because of that. So in order for them to be able to compete with you, of course, they're going to need to be able to armor up and get better swords. And at some point, given a diamond sword with you, you can walk in, into an enemy base and take their bed pretty easily. And I've done that many times as Elder Tree. In fact, I've got, I think, probably more bed breaks as Elder Tree than any other kit. Now, the main setback of this Elder Tree, though, is as you get bigger, it becomes much more difficult to navigate in and out of your base, especially if people are trying to build like little tunnels or anything like that, or any kind of tight corners. You can't actually fit through some blocks. Like, if it's a single block passageway, you might not be able to fit through. So that's going to cover it for us today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to like and subscribe and turn those notifications on to get notified of future videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.